Hello everyone. Welcome to Baller Masters, the YouTube channel powered by indiaballer.com. Uh, I have given you some idea about how to apply for the BOE certificate examination. What is the BOE certificate examination? Who is conducting it? What are the eligibility criteria to appear for this BOE certificate examination? And I have also told you that I'm going to give you in due course of time few tips and guidelines about how to prepare for the examination. Now, I explained earlier that these papers, which are conducted by various states and, of course, Central Boiler Board have also conducted this examination once. Uh, there are two types of questions so far as the engineering theory part is concerned, boiler engineering theory part is concerned. Some questions are theoretical questions and some are numerical mathematical problems. In this particular video, I'm going to give you some guideline and tips about how to prepare for the theory questions of this examination. Okay, so first let us take a look at what are the various areas from where the questions are coming. Uh, to tell you honestly, the coverage is very big. They can ask you anything and everything, even remotely connected to boiler, right? They can ask you about steam properties, fuels, different fuels, combustion characteristic, combustion criteria. These are all theoretical questions I'm talking about. Uh, of course, there are major number of questions would be coming from various boiler systems, uh, their accessories, auxiliaries, and mountings, right? They can ask you from pollution control norms. They can ask you about draft, and yes, another very important area would be the water chemistry and water treatment in boiler feed water, because this is not only important from the theory questions point of view. Uh, in Viva, also they are going to ask you a lot about this, and that is one of the reason why in my online course, which I conduct for the BOE certificate examination preparation, we have given a specific thrust on this particular topic. I have created about 3, 4 videos on this video lectures, which you can find in the when you join the course. Now, this guideline, the number of topics which I have mentioned, uh, cannot actually help you to prepare for the theoretical questions. My suggestions is that in the net and of course in our portal also, uh, the previous year's questions as conducted by various states are available. Okay, so take those questions as your syllabus. Uh, in short, I usually tell everyone that whenever you are going for an examination conducted by any state, right? First of all, cover the previous question papers of that state and the neighboring states. So, if you are going from Gujarat for Gujarat IBR, then you perhaps would like to cover the Maharashtra IBR, then the Rajasthan IBR, and similar types of questions are asked by Chhattisgarh and Jharkhand as well, right? So this 4, 5 states question, at least for the last 3 years question papers, you just note down all the theory questions and try to answer all those theory questions, prepare for all those theory questions. I would say you'll be reasonably prepared, right? On the other hand, if you want to prepare it with absolute certainty, it's better to cover all the theory questions that have been asked by different states for at least the last 3 years, right? So that will be the basic suggestion I would give to prepare for the theory questions of this examination. Now, what is important in this is, of course, you need to study a lot, prepare the answers for those, right? But Remember, we are now no longer students. We are no longer in academics, and our brain works in a different way. The uh, the content, the content which we could memorize earlier, could retain earlier, we don't have that capacity nowadays. Yeah, our brain are more adapt to processing information. Yes, because we are working, we know the things which we have read in the book. Now we can see in the field, but reading something and memorizing it would be very difficult. So again, this is a strong suggestion that when you pick a question, right, prepare the answers the way I tell you. I'll give you the guideline for that, how to prepare an answer for a theory question. Prepare the answer, write it on a paper. Now, when your brain is processing that answer and you're writing it in your own language, so your brain is processing the answer, a large part of that information will be retained, right? So when in the exam hall, if you see that question, I think you can do justice to that question a better way. Rather than if you have a ready-made answer available somewhere, right? Because whenever I conduct the course, I always get this question, sir, can we get an answer for this? Right? I always tell everybody that that is not going to be useful. Yeah, I'll be able to give you an answer, but that answer would be just for the reference. Then you have to prepare your own answer in your own language, right? And then only it will be useful to you. Otherwise, just reading an answer, ready-made answer is never going to be useful to you. But the way you need to write the answer is very important. See, uh, this examination I told you is conducted by a board of around 19 professionals. Uh, Majority of them are people like you and me who are not in academics, who are working somewhere in a senior position. And those who are not in academics, you understand one thing that they are not habituated with reading a lot of text, right? Small example, uh, if a doctor writes a prescription, it's very difficult for you to, make any sense of it. But if you go to any medicine shop, right? So that person who is in the medicine shop, they can read it very easily. Why? Because they are doing it every day. They know what kind of medicines are usually being prescribed by one particular doctor against a one particular ailment. So something similar to that, they can figure it out. Okay, this must be this, right? But any layman, if they take a look, they will not be able to make head and tail of this. Now, similar way, a professional, when they see a handwritten answer, because you would be writing the answer uh, with your hand, and I think you know what kind of handwriting we produce when particularly we are writing in a hurry, right? We are no longer habituated with writing a lot of text. We are usually habituated with the keyboard of a computer. And that also most of the time Control C and Control V are the two options we are using more frequently. So when you write in a hurry, your handwriting will not be very good, right? And the person who is not habituated in seeing or making any sense out of those kind of handwritings day in and day out, they will have a very difficult time. So, first tip, don't write too much. If you write a lot of text, it will become very difficult for the examiner to make any sense out of it and give you the marks accordingly. Better, when you write an answer, you know, the way we prepare a PowerPoint presentation, right? We don't write a lot of text. Those are all basically the content note meant for the speaker, right? So the keywords should be there. Yes. And again, in a PowerPoint presentation, we are using a lot of bullet points, bullet marking, and the numbers, serial number. so that we know that, okay, this is point number one, this is point number two, this is point number three, right? It is very important that you write an answer in that manner. No matter whatever the question is, whether it's a short note, whether it's a descriptive question, whether it's a differentiate between, let us say, superheater and reheater, in every answer to a theoretical question, you should have very short, precisely written points, and each point should have a number so that when an examiner is taking the first look at your answer, the first thing, the first information that is getting transferred to his mind is that, okay, this guy has written this many points. That is very important, right? So make it a practice. When you write an answer, it has to be very precisely written. Don't worry about the language and the grammar and all those things. This is not a examination for literature. Yes, your point should be conveyed properly, but it has to be very briefly written, right? Don't write at least 4 or 5 lines together. No sentence or no answer should be more than, or no points should be more than 2 to 3 lines, not more than that. Okay, that is going to help you a lot in getting good marks. Now, let us take a look at a sample question paper, theory question paper. This one, which I'm showing you, is from Gujarat. Okay, here let me first tell you a couple of things. You see this particular point. Draw a neat sketch wherever necessary. Now, first of all, what is a neat sketch? Neat sketch doesn't mean you need a ruler and a pencil to draw that sketch. Okay? When you are adding a sketch or a diagram along with your answer to a theory question, it can be done by a pen, right? But draw neatly so that they can understand, okay, what you have drawn and how it is connected to your answer, right? And uh, if you can draw a net scale, that is going to give a lot more weightage on that answer rather than writing a lot of text. And a diagram can be seen and understood rather more easily by a person than going through a very badly written, text on a paper. So try to add, however possible, one diagram with your answer for any questions more than 3 to 4 marks, carrying more than 3 to 4 marks. Okay. Now, when you see a question, the first thing you should note, okay, read the question carefully. Read whatever options they have given. For example, here in question number one, they have given answer the following questions, any two. So A, B, C, three options are there. Again, this I think you have been knowing since your academic days, but people tend to forget. You have been given two options, you will give the answer for two questions only. If you think that, okay, my second answer is not so good, so let me try the third answer also. If you do that, okay, no problem in that. If you think that your third answer is better, then cancel out the second answer, because the examiner is going to see the first two answers and then he is going to just cancel out the third answer, whether it's a better answer or not. He is not going to consider that. The first two answers would be considered by the examiner. Please keep it in mind. People tend to forget that. Second thing is that, as I told you, that when you see a theory question, the first thing you see how much marks have been assigned to that question. For example, in this, let us say question number two. Question number two, they have given you answer any four of the following questions. They have given you 5 options, A, B, C, D, E, and they have given you 20 marks. So that uh, is calculated to be 5 marks for each question. So it's a 5-mark question. So that is the first information that should come to your mind. Okay, this question is having 5 marks. Now, what do I need to do for this? So please understand, you need to have at least 4 to 5 points given in the answer body. And as I told you, preferably with a diagram, right? Then only it is going to justify these 5 marks. Now, 4 to 5 points, I'm telling you, uh, for a particular question, you might be having more than that, maybe 10 points. Then you need to first analyze, okay, which are the points which are more relevant to this question, right? Then make only those points. If you know a lot, don't put the lot on the paper against 5 marks, because if you write 10 points for 5 marks question, that be an absolute waste of your effort as well as time, right? So a 5 mark question, it it justifies 4 to 5 points, not more than that. So the most important points you mentioned. Or the other way around, suppose you do not know more than 2 to 3 points. Now here comes the skill for answering the BOE theory questions. Make those 2 to 3 points at least 4 to 5 points. Break it, right? So you will be seeing that yes, one particular point I can answer in 2 parts. So fine, make it in 2 parts and give the number 1, 2, 3. So this guy gets the impression that okay, you have given 5 points, right? It is a very useful skill. Now, if I, let us say, take a question as an example and explain it to you how to write a, answer to a theory question, I think it'll be better understood by you. So let us say in question number 2A, the question is, what are basic conditions to fulfill proper dearation system, right? So let us deal with that particular question, that what are the basic conditions to fulfill proper dearation system. Now, they have not asked you to write about dearation system, right? They have asked you to write about the basic conditions that is required, those are required to be fulfilled to ensure proper dearation in the system. Okay. The basic requirement is, yes, you need to have information about the dearation, how the dearation is worked. So in a boiler system, particularly in a high pressure, high temperature boiler system, the dissolved oxygen plays a very important role in terms of corrosion, right? Dissolved oxygen corrosion is a serious problem for boiler tubes. To avoid that, we need to ensure amongst all other gases, particularly the dissolved oxygen should be removed. So what do we do for that? So we have two way of dealing it. First, we have a mechanical deaerator, right? And along with the deaerator, after the deaerator, before the BSP suction, we have a chemical dosing of a particular oxygen scavenger, right? In most cases, it is the hydrazine, that is N2H4. Now, uh, in this deaeration system, we require an oxygen, dissolved oxygen limit of less than 5 ppb, particularly if you are having magnetite as a protection system, right? I'm not giving you the detail about the magnetite and all because that is a protection system that can be discussed on other context. But if you are having a magnetite protection system, then your requirement of dissolved oxygen in a high pressure, high temperature boiler is less than 5 ppb. Now, how you do that? First, you have a mechanical deaerator, which is mostly a spray and tray type or spray type deaerator, where the water is coming from the top, right? There are trays where the waters are broken into small droplets, thereby increasing the surface area. And then there is a lower part of this deaerator, which is basically the storage of the deaerator, where the water is getting stored. Now the deaeration is done in which way? So we use a pegging steam, a steam that is usually taken from in a power plant, some turbine extraction, that is the LP part of the turbine, right? And in other cases, suppose it's a process plant, then there would be auxiliary steam available to you that will be used for the pegging steam. Now this pegging steam does two jobs. First of all, it increases the temperature of the water, right? It interacts with the water. It goes from bottom to top, and the water is coming in droplets from top to bottom. So this steam is interacting with this water and increasing the temperature. How it helps? Because the solubility of oxygen is inversely proportional to the temperature of the water. As the temperature increases, the solubility decreases, right? And the solubility tends to become zero at saturation temperature. Saturation temperature corresponding to the pressure of the deaerator, because whenever you are adding steam, the deaerator will be also pressurized. But we cannot reach the saturation temperature, can we? Because if we reach the saturation temperature, then the water will become steam. We do not want that. We want the water to be stored in the storage tank, because that will be supplied to the boiler. So what we do is we keep the temperature of the deaerator very close to the saturation temperature corresponding to the deaerator pressure. Usually around 1.5 to 2 degree less than the saturation temperature is the ideal temperature to be targeted in a deaerator, right? So that is the thermal deaeration part that is being fulfilled in the mechanical deaerator. Dissolved oxygens are removed, released, and the vent is open from where the dissolved oxygen along with whatever steam is going through the vent will be going out. But that is not going to achieve the desired dissolved oxygen limit that we want to achieve after the deaerator. A thermomechanical deaerator can remove dissolved oxygen up to 7 ppb, 0.007 ppm. That's a very small number, right? Very little dissolved oxygen would be remaining after the deaerator. Now, in order to achieve that kind of a removal of dissolved oxygen, naturally the deaerator has to target zero solubility. Then only practically it can be removed, right? And whereas the thermal deaeration, temperature deaeration, it cannot remove totally because we cannot reach the saturation temperature. So there is another very important part or important principle that is going in the deaerator working, which is actually responsible for the removal of oxygen. And that is Henry's laws of partial pressure. Now, what is Henry's law of partial pressure? That the solubility of oxygen reduces when the partial pressure of oxygen over the surface of the water reduces. And when the partial pressure becomes zero, the solubility of dissolved oxygen becomes zero and it's going to release all the dissolved oxygen. Now, how we can achieve that? So what we do, this pegging steam is actually driving away all the air from the deaerator. When the pegging steam is totally purging the system, it's totally full of steam, then there is no air in the deaerator. And if there is no air over the surface of the water, the partial pressure of oxygen, which is part of the air, will also become zero. And then the solubility will become zero. Now, that is the most important principle in proper working of a deaerator, right? So in order to do that, what we need to do? We need to purge sufficient amount of steam through the deaerator, right? And then how do we understand that, okay, the purging is sufficient? In that case, we need to look at the vent. First of all, there should not be any throttling in the vent. Because you see, the deaerator is designed in such a way that whatever the amount of steam that is being extracted from the turbine and going through the deaerator and going through the vent is going to maintain the pressure of the system when it is in full operating condition, right? Therefore, even there is a valve which is basically there to begin the operation. So in the beginning of operation, to increase the pressure of the system, we operate the valve. But after that, when it is in full operation, this vent valve should be totally open. There should not be any throttling, right? But people tend to make a mistake. What they do, they can see steam is going out of the vent. That is a loss, right? So they think that, okay, if we keep the vent a little throttle, steam is still going to come out. Therefore, whatever dissolved oxygen wants to come out, it can come out, right? So they throttle the valve a little bit. But whenever we are throttling the valve, we are obstructing the steam. We are also obstructing the dissolved oxygen, the air to come out of the deaerator. Therefore, the partial pressure of oxygen cannot be zero, right? So the vent should be fully open and the steam should pass through the vent in continuous plume. You see, when we do a hydro testing, before the hydro testing, we fill the system in with water, keeping the vents open. Then when the water starts coming out of the vent, we start closing the vent one after another. The last vent is open when we are sure that there is no air in the system. Now, how do you make sure? Now, if you take a look at the water spout that is coming out of the vent, if it is a continuous plume, then you understand that there is no air trapped inside the system. But if the water plume is, not continuous, it is discontinuous, sometimes coming a little farther, sometimes going shorter, sometimes not coming, it indicates that there is still air gap. So what we need to ensure, in order to ensure the deaerator performance, we need to ensure continuous venting of steam, right, with a continuous plume. Now that is going to ensure the performance of the deaerator. So those are the conditions we have to mention. And then if you see after the deaerator, the water is containing around 7 ppb of dissolved oxygen, which is still not the desired dissolved oxygen limit for us. We need to further reduce it. Now here we need to add the chemical scavenger, the oxygen scavenger, which is basically the hydrazine in case of a high pressure, high temperature boiler. Now when we add the hydrazine after the deaerator, before the BFP suction, what are the conditions that are getting fulfilled? First of all, the hydrazine is only going to attack the residual dissolved oxygen coming from the deaerator because it is a chemical scavenger. It cannot deal with the total oxygen removal. It can only remove the whatever the residual oxygen is there after the deaeration, right? Second thing, in the deaerator, the temperature increases above 100 degrees centigrade, right? Hydrazine is active chemically when the temperature is more than 90 degrees centigrade. So high temperature water actually helps the hydrazine to react with the dissolved oxygen. Second thing is, since we are dosing the hydrazine at the BFP suction, that means this hydrazine will go through the BFP. Usually a BFP is a centrifugal pump. So there will be a proper mixing, churning action, proper mixing of this hydrazine with in water. Therefore, it will have a better possibility with interacting with the dissolved oxygen. See, any chemical reaction requires to fulfill these 3T conditions: time, temperature, turbulence, right? Whether it is a combustion reaction, whether it is a hydrazine reaction. So temperature is one part, turbulence, that is mixing, is another part. And since we are dosing it at the BFP suction and checking the residual hydrazine at the economizer inlet, you see the feed water sample which we take from the economizer inlet should contain some residual hydrazine. What does it mean? That means the hydrazine has reacted with the oxygen, some hydrazine is remaining. So that is going to ensure that yes, our desired dissolved oxygen limit has been achieved, right? Now, from the BFP suction to the economizer inlet, it also gets the sufficient amount of retention time, the third T of the reaction, right? So all these conditions are getting fulfilled by dosing the hydrazine at the deaerator outlet or BFP suction. Right? So these are the informations you definitely need to write the answer. Now, when we write the answer, how we do it? First, of course, you remember this kind of a simple diagram. If you add with the answer, it is going to put a lot of weightage, right? Along with this, your text answer is going to get much more, linked with the diagram, and therefore the examiner would have less difficulty in understanding what you're trying to say. So as I told you, first of all, like PowerPoint presentation, point-wise answer, not too many text. Those are the basic things you need to remember. So let us say I need to answer this question. First of all, I write that, okay, deaeration system is having two parts. One is mechanical deaeration in thermomechanical deaerator, and one is chemical deaeration, which is basically oxygen scavenging. Then I directly relate to the question. They have asked you what are the conditions that are required to be fulfilled. So we start the answer like this. The conditions those are required to be fulfilled for proper mechanical deaeration. Now I am having two parts. So proper mechanical deaeration is first the temperature. As I told you, the temperature, when it reaches saturation temperature, the solubility of oxygen becomes zero. So we write that since the solubility of oxygen is reduced with increase in temperature of the water and tends to become zero at saturation temperature, we need to maintain the temperature as near to the saturation temperature corresponding to the deaerator pressure, right? And this is definitely being done by the pegging steam. So you can mention that the pegging stream is passing through the deaerator that increases the temperature. And the second point is the most important point, that is the Henry's laws of partial pressure. So in the second point, you write the partial pressure of oxygen, which is Henry's law. As per Henry's law, as the solubility of oxygen decreases with reduction of partial pressure over the surfaces of water, now this water is coming through various trays. So you mentioned, so we add tray or spray type deaerator where the water is getting broken into small droplets, thereby increasing the surface area, which is in interaction with the steam, right? And a continuous passing of the steam, continuous purging of the steam through the deaerator ensures the partial pressure of oxygen to become zero, and therefore the solubility will become zero, right? So that way, in your own language, you just convey that information. Yeah. In this particular case, the what are the keywords? Yes, Henry's law of partial pressure is a keyword. How to connect it? That we are purging the total system, driving away all the air, and when we are driving away all the air through the deaerator with steam, by maintaining continuous venting of steam through the deaerator, right? The partial pressure of oxygen will become zero. So connect the information that way in your answer, right? In your own language, very short and precise. Don't worry about the grammar part. Don't worry about the correctness of the English. Just give the right information in the right manner, the way it will be easier for the examiner to see and understand. Then we can say that there is a conditions for chemical dosing. That is for oxygen scavenging. Here you mentioned one thing, that the hydrazine is dosed after the deaerator at the BFP suction and to the desired quantity so as to ensure residual hydrazine at economizer inlet. See, the dissolved oxygen becomes very corrosive at high temperature in closed system of water. In closed system of water means economizer. High temperature means economizer outlet. So at economizer inlet, if you can ensure that the dissolved oxygen is totally within our range, then there is no chance of corrosion, right? So what we do, we maintain the residual hydrazine after the reaction, whatever is remaining. And there is a limit, so mention that it is usually maintained at less than 0.05 ppm, right? So the hydrazine is dosed at the deaerator outlet before the BFP, and a residual hydrazine is maintained at the economizer outlet in the feed water sample. Actually, this should be sufficient for so far as this question is concerned. But if you want, you can just explain further that how the three conditions are getting fulfilled by dosing the hydrazine after the deaerator at the BFP suction. So you can mention that the high temperature of water after the deaerator makes the hydrazine more reactive. Then passing through the BFP, because you are dosing it at BFP section, passing through the BFP, which is a centrifugal pump, helps a proper mixing with the water so that the hydrogen can chemically react with the dissolved oxygen. And third thing, because you are dosing it at BFP suction, it gets sufficient amount of retention time before it reaches the economizer of the system, right? And that should be more than good enough answer for this. This is the way you prepare answers to all the theory questions. As I told you, that take at least 3 papers, last 3 papers. I'm not saying last 3 years because not every state are conducting this examination every year. So you might see somebody is having, some state is having 2022, then maybe 2019, because 2020 was the COVID year. Nobody has conducted an examination apart from Central Board Board. So like that, you go for last 3 years and prepare answers of all the theory questions. Prepare the answer. Don't see ready-made answer. Keep it in a single place. Usually, I suggest that you keep a large notebook for the preparation. Keep everything there. So whenever you are going for this examination, before the examination, just go through the answer. Since those answers are already prepared by you, your mind has processed that answer, it will be easier for you to remember in the examination hall, right? So with that, I'm going to conclude today's video. Follow these tips and prepare for the BOE theory questions bar nicely. In my next video, I'm going to give you again similar tips for the numerical questions. And if you want to get a notification whenever we are uploading this video, I would suggest you to subscribe to this channel. That's going to help us too. And I would also like to remind you that we are conducting this course, a complete preparatory course, online course, through the portal, which you can find in this particular address, www.boeonline.in. Fine. I'm going to see you with my next video. Whenever I get the time, I will be uploading that video with tips for numerical questions. Thank you and bye-bye.